The lovely link. There you have it. So today we will be discussing an update on the Learning Cohort Capacity Building Program as led by Anthesis. Obviously many of you are taking part in that and will know, but we're eager to provide an overview of what's been going on. Then we want to give you the bigger picture of the Cotton 2040 initiative. The Learning Cohort is just one work stream of 3, and we thought there are some exciting opportunities in those work streams as well, and we'd be very keen to give those, to explain this to you. And then in a presentation of a exciting pilot with Authenticate, and I'll allow Paul a moment to introduce himself. So with me today is Nicola from Anthesis and Paul. Nicola, do you just want to quickly introduce yourself? And then Paul, I'll hand over to you as well.
Yep, I think I've been in touch with most of you. I'm sort of managing the Cotton 2040 project from the Anthesis side. I'm a senior consultant in supply chains at Anthesis. We'll all be in touch, so I'll hand over to, did you say Paul?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Paul Marples. I'm the CEO of a business called Authenticate, and we are supply chain transparency technology and services business. So I'll be pleased to run through the idea that we have for you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. So I just want to give a bit of housekeeping. Please, if you have any questions, there will be an opportunity at the end of the call to ask anything about any of the topics that will be raised today. And in addition, any extra information, please do reach out to both Nicola and I after the call, and we'll also be ready to send out further documentation relating to any of the opportunities presented. Without any further ado, Nicola, I'll hand over to you to discuss updates on the Learning Cohort.
Holly, I know you're with us, but you can't stay long. Is there anything you wanted to say before you hop off?
I just wanted to say hi to everybody and bye to everybody, just to sort of make it clear that although I'm going to be still working on the Cotton 2040 project in the background, Nicola is going to be taking over as the client-facing lead on this for the moment. So I just wanted to, let you all know that I'm still around, and if you ever want to email me, you're more than welcome, but Nicola will be dealing with more the day-to-day stuff. So just a hi and bye for everybody.
Brilliant. Thanks, Holly.
No worries.
Okay, so we thought it would be useful just to kind of recap. This is the final year of Cotton 2040, just to sort of recap the progress that has been made and go through where we're up to and what's going to happen in the final year, and also what you'd like to get out of Cotton 2040 in the final year. So these are, this is you, these are the brands that are participating. We've got a few new joiners that I'd like to welcome on the call. From Arvind, we've got AJ and Sri Harsha who are taking over for sustainability in Cotton 2040 at Arvind. So welcome both. And who else have we got on the call actually? Anna, we've got, hi Anna, and Sujimoto and Charlotte and Furusawa. Okay, great. Well, welcome all. If we move on to the next slide, Neil. Okay, so in terms of progress so far, for the benefit of everybody who's on the call, just to recap, but also for the new participants, what has happened and what we've shared, and also the resources that are still available to you. So we've had webinars going over various topics to do with sustainable cotton and sustainable cotton sourcing. In 2020, we did baselining of 2020, your cotton footprinting for 2020, and we're going to go over baselining again and the opportunity to do baselining of your 2021 cotton a bit later. There's the Cotton Up Guide that Cotton 2040 has been updating for the last few years, and that's a really helpful resource if you haven't seen it before. It's a guide to sourcing more sustainable cotton, and there's loads of information in there. and other resources we've done. There's a new guide on certifications that we've just put on the portal. And there's other guides on there as well to do. So the one on the picture here, BCI implementation guide. So sort of topic specific resources. And then also most recently, we've been working with you on sourcing strategies. So going through with you what your ambitions are in terms of sustainable cotton sourcing and how you are thinking about converting conventional cotton into more sustainable options. And that's really where we'd like to kind of check in with you and see how we can support you more to achieve what you've put in your sourcing strategies. So just to recap, all of those resources that have been produced so far and the recordings of the webinars are available on the Cotton 2040 portal, which you should all have access to. But if anybody's got any problems accessing it, then just let me know. Okay, I think we can move on, Neil. So in terms of your sourcing strategies that you all very kindly produced for us last year and at the beginning of this year, we did a little bit of analysis just to see what changes are being made and what the ambition is across all of the brands. So on average, brands are currently sourcing 40% sustainable cotton, and by 2025, across all of the brands, you're aiming to convert 85% of your total ranges into more sustainable cotton, which is great. And you can see the graph at the top is by tons, and the graph at the bottom, which is probably a bit clearer, is by percentage of your the total amount of cotton that you buy as a brand. So you can see the top line is where you are currently, so it's 40% sustainable, 60% conventional. And there's not a huge change by 2023, which is what we would expect, but then everybody's been a lot more ambitious. So by 2025, there's quite a big leap, which is really great. So we want to kind of discuss, how confident you're feeling about achieving that and where we can support you. So we move on to the next slide. And then also just taking a look at the initiatives that you're all looking at as brands. So the beginning of the Cotton 2040 programme focused a lot on sharing information about the different sustainable cotton options that are out there, sharing information on those. And it was interesting to see which of those initiatives people are putting most of their sourcing efforts into, and you can see BCI is no surprise, is by far the biggest proportion of sustainable cotton, and there's quite a big increase. We all know Better Cotton is quite an easy access initiative, and typically no or not much cost increases in terms of your sourcing. So not a huge surprise there, but great to see that organic comes second. So we've got GOTS and the organic cotton content standard. And there's quite a big increase there. Recycled, quite a big jump, and also fair trade. Nobody was currently sourcing fair trade, but there was definitely some interest. And regenerative organic, you can't really see much on there, but there has been some interest, and we've had quite a few questions about both regenerative organic and also in conversion organic cotton. So it seems like there's quite a lot of interest to move into that area more. So we can move on. So one of the questions that we asked in the sourcing strategy document was what challenges and barriers you found to sourcing more sustainable cotton. This was really, really insightful for us. We've got some quotes in there which are anonymized, but it was fairly equal across the barriers that were identified. So cost, availability, internal systems to manage sustainable cotton. So managing those certification schemes and collecting scope certificates and transaction certificates, and also traceability. It was fairly equal across all of those challenges. So some of the challenges that you've been having, difficulty in sourcing recycled or cottons or some more sustainable fibers, pricing, managing systems, like I say, to sort of manage those scope certificates and transaction certificates that come with some of the more sustainable options. And then also something that really came through was traceability and transparency. How do we know if we use organic cotton, is it truly environmentally friendly and ethically produced? And we've had a lot of questions about, you know, how do you know where your cotton's coming from and how sustainable it really is. I just wanted to pause on this slide actually, and just in the time between producing these sourcing documents and now, has anybody had any other challenges? Does this still sound about right? What are the challenges that you're having in sourcing more sustainable cotton? Anyone? Yeah, like Neil says, feel free to put comments in the chat and we can pick up on them later. But if there's no further challenges, well, that's great. So we can move on. So like I mentioned at the beginnings, we did for for your 2020 cotton purchasing, we did some baselining for most of the brands and produced these Tableau dashboards showing you what your cotton footprint is. This is really useful for those of you who weren't involved in the first round. This is really useful if you want to set targets for cotton, more sustainable cotton sourcing. So it gives you your baseline, your starting point of how much of the different fibers you're currently sourcing, and therefore you can set your targets against that and measure progress. We are offering to do that for your 2021 cotton data. You're still able to sign up for that probably for the next month. If you could get back to me as soon as possible, we could put that into work. So yeah, if you've got interest in doing that again, so that you could measure your progress against your 2020 cotton baseline, or if you didn't do it in the first round, we could do it again so that you have something to sort of measure your progress and set targets against. So we can move on to the next slide. And then just wanted to kind of stop and reflect about what we might focus on in the next year. So if you've got any thoughts, please feel free to sort of join in or put something in the chat, or you can take this away and get in touch with me afterwards. But thinking about what support would be helpful for you in the final year. So how confident are you with your sourcing strategy and the targets that you've made? And is there any help that you'd like, any resources? I've put some suggestions on here. So some of the things we've had interest in so far are regenerative organic cotton, in conversion and in transition organic cotton, and how can you source those initiatives? And also brand certification is something that keeps cropping up. And there have been some changes in that space about the requirements for some of the certified cotton standards, and some, so Textile Exchange and GOTS under certain conditions require you to be certified as a brand, or will require you to be certified as a brand. So if anybody would want more information on those schemes or anything else, yeah, if anybody's got any thoughts.
Nicholas Shirash has asked the question in the chat: how regenerative organic cotton is verified? Is it through transaction certificate?
I believe the regenerative organic certified standard is. Let me go away and check that. I've got some resources on that, so I can go away and pull those out for you and send them after the session.
Yeah, I think that from our side at Falcon, there's basically what we've talked about briefly before. Due to the unavailability of organic cotton, we would like to swap into sourcing at least a percentage of in conversion and support that infrastructure. But as a smaller brand, usually getting involved at the fabric level, not at the fiber level, we're really struggling to find fabric that meets that percentage of in conversion material?
Yeah, okay, we've heard that quite a lot actually. It is hard to find, the right percentage. There are some initiatives out there that you can kind of join and sign up to. So there are several ways of sourcing that in conversion and in transition organic cotton. So firstly, GOTS and Textile Exchange have got their public database of suppliers. You can search through that, but there are also other initiatives. So like the Organic Cotton Accelerator, and we were wondering if it was helpful for you, I could share resources, or we could try and arrange maybe a lunchtime session to go in a bit more detail into the practicalities of how you can get around not being able to find those percentages and quantities that you need.
Amazing, that would be really helpful. And the other thing, which is not necessarily to do with the cotton itself, but with the brand certification side of things. We are trying to figure out how is it that we're going to implement the certifications at our warehouse level, and in particular, how to handle returns. So given the need to keep all of the different fabrics and all of the different certifications separated, both how to do it when there is an overlap of certifications, but also when there is a situation in which clothes get returned and they've been unpackaged.
Yes, returns is definitely the highest risk. So are you going through the brand certification process at the moment? Or are you planning it?
We're planning it.
Okay, yeah, maybe we should have a separate conversation about that. Definitely. So your certification body will kind of assess the risk of your business, and for brands the rules are slightly different to the supply chain in terms of segregation of products. But yeah, we can maybe go through that in a bit more detail. So returns is definitely something that they will very keenly look at. So essentially the risk of goods being returned back into your business. So is there an instance where all of the labels and things that identify it as a certified product could be removed? So for example, if returns came back and they were washed or laundered before being relabeled and sent back out again, is that sort of thing that they're looking for?
Great, thank you.
And just a final point actually on in terms of the segregation of goods and keeping things separately in your warehouse, I would, if you have a certification body signed up already, I would ask them a question about that, because there's been a bit of confusion about how important that is at a brand level, because your products are finished products. Unless you're dealing with raw materials, it's not as high a risk. So I would ask your certification body for clarification on that one.
Great, thanks, Nicola.
No worries. Any other thoughts about what would be useful in terms of support for the following year? Otherwise, we can pick up on this with you separately after the session.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Nicola. So in building on the kind of great work that's happened in this work stream, working with you all as part of the learning cohorts, we also have two other work streams in the Cotton 2040 initiative. The first one is improving sector-wide action and understanding on climate change and focusing on adaptation. And the second one is the building uptake of sustainable cotton, which you all are part of. And the third is really trying to understand and analyze sustainable business models, and really thinking about what future fit business models would look like for the cotton industry. On the screen, you can see a couple of highlights, just to pull some out. Our partnership with Willis Towers Watson produced a global climate risk report on cotton production worldwide. This tool is now available online on the Willis Towers Watson website. It's really fascinating. As a global reach, it discusses multiple hazards such as wildfires, floods, and so on, and can get pretty granular. So I really encourage you to check that out. And in addition to those, there were written reports, both at a global level and with an India focus. And again, those reports are available online and really informative. There's an executive summary, but there are also full reports that I really encourage you to check out. Nicola's already mentioned the great work in this work stream, so I'll leave that there. And then we're really pleased in the third workshop that we've partnered with the World Resources Institute and did a kind of full analysis of a lot of, I think, over 50 different business models around the world, and trying to understand what if they fit certain criteria, and really trying to convene the sector through multiple workshops that happened in 2021, trying to convene the sector in understanding what those models would look like going forward, and really trying to understand what routes to scale would be for these kind of innovative and future fit models. In 2020, in this final year, in our first work stream, it partnered with Willis Towers Watson. We're offering a kind of an exclusive opportunity for brands and retailers to participate in a series of masterclasses. And this will be with Willis Towers Watson's and Cotton 2040's climate subject matter experts. And some of the topics include liability, transition and decarbonization, governance, and people. And this is an opportunity that we are sharing with this learning cohort as well. The series of masterclasses will be pretty short. They will, I think, be about 30 to 45 minutes, and there'll be 6 or 7 of them. The reason why they're so short is really to just kind of provide an overview of the subject matter and introduce you to the experts themselves, and really hopefully pave the way for engagement in this subject matter going forward. If that's something that interests you and your organization, please do get in touch with me if you're interested in this opportunity. And then in the third work stream, we've actually got a really exciting initiative happening in the US. And this is an internal partnership in Forum for the Future, which is with our regenerative agriculture focused program, Growing Our Future. And this will be developing and convening a pilot based on financial mechanisms to support transitioning to regenerative agricultural production. So it's an on-the-farm pilot, and it's aiming to empower and enable cotton farmers to do that transition, and to do so by through a harmonized system. We'll be working with the Ecosystems Service Market Consortium and the US Cotton Trust Protocol, Textile Exchange, and many others that you'll be familiar with. We'll be recruiting farmers later on this year. And really this is, so we're looking for brands and retailers to get involved and ways of getting involved would be supporting the program itself in delivering the project. It could be in financing aspects such as the soil sampling baseline that goes into the internal system for ESMC. There are multiple different ways. We're really excited about it. So we're expecting to recruit farmers later on this year, and then the project will begin in the next harvest season in the US. So there will be opportunities for brands and retailers to be kind of trailblazing, to look at credit-based systems and really advancing their ambitions in supporting regenerative agriculture. I think there's a small graph here which explains the kind of model being piloted. I think none of this will be surprising. Luckily, we have Hannah on the call who's been responsible for pulling this all together, so I'm sure she can do a good job of explaining any other details. Hannah.
Hi, thanks, Neil. No, I think you did a good job of explaining what we're looking to do, but I just wanted to make one small edit. We are recruiting farmers this month, next month, and hope to have the consortia, the constellation of both the brand or retailer and farmer signed up by mid-July. So the pilot itself, or the experiment, will be taking place in this forthcoming season, growing season, and then it'll be verified early next year in terms of just what regenerative outcomes have been achieved. And thereafter, the credit which has been generated will be sold on to the brand, and the farmer will be paid for that in addition to the cotton. But I just wanted to make sure that those timelines were sort of stacked up. So if you are interested, we can send some information around about what that looks like, but just to say that that's happening right now. So small amendment. Thanks,
Yeah,
Neil.
great to hear. Thank you. And in the question and answer time we have available at the end of the call, if there's any questions, I think Hannah's staying on until then, so I think you can ask any questions directly to her, or we can get in touch with you after the call. So I'm really keen to move on to the opportunity with Authenticate. And like I said, there'll be opportunities to ask any questions, but I think that's one other thing I just wanted to highlight is that the Cotton 2040 phase 4 initiative, initiative is in its phase 4, and that phase will be ending in January 2023 with some differences in timelines due to extending the pilot in the US. I just wanted to give a brief timeline of what's going on here. So we're hoping to start the pilots that we'll be introducing shortly in June. There will be remaining capacity building activities as part of the learning cohort, and the masterclasses that I outlined, I think won't be starting in June, but we're beginning to pull together the recruitment for the brands and so on in that month. Sorry, Hannah, again, you're right, the timeline has been moved forward, but that farmer enrollment is happening now. But we are looking to work with you all as learning cohort partners to kind of do some really great communications about the fantastic work that you've all done in pushing that sourcing strategies and really pushing your own ambitions, and we want to recognize that. So we'll be working with Anthesis and hopefully with some of you to do so. The traceability pilot will be wrapping up in December, and then the project, like I said, will by and large be wrapping up in January of 2023, and we are looking to share those learnings that we've gathered over this multi-phase initiative with the industry, and we'll be doing that throughout 2022, and we'll also do it to finish off the project. So look out for us at the Better Cotton conference and the Textile Exchange conference, in which we will be hopefully be speaking at both. So I think that's all from the Cotton 2040 bigger picture view. So I'm going to hand over to Nicola now to introduce the opportunity that we wanted to present to you today. And then after that, Paul will be speaking to present from his side.
Great, thanks, Neil. If you just go on to the next slide, that's it. Okay, so we wanted to introduce this new pilot project to you all. So we're going to be working with a company called Authenticate. Paul introduced himself earlier, and it's an opportunity for brands to trace back cotton garments as far back through the supply chain as we can, and the aim is to find out where your cotton comes from. And so, like Neil was explaining, the other work streams of the Cotton 2040 project have been looking at climate risks associated with different regions for the cotton sector. And this will be a really interesting learning. If you can find out where your cotton comes from, can you mitigate some of those risks associated with cotton sourcing regions? And so it's going to be a 6-month pilot working with the Authenticate team who have a system that Paul's about to show you to demonstrate supply chain transparency of those individual products. So I'll pass it over to Paul. Thanks.
Thank you, Nicola. Can you? I am unmuted, I hope. Yes. Good. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. So my name is Paul Marples. I'm the, as I said earlier, I'm the CEO of Authenticate. We are a supply chain transparency technology business, and we have a technology software platform that has been providing transparency solutions for businesses for about 9 years now. So we've been doing it some time, and we have a platform that is pretty well tried and tested now. We have more than 100,000 different products that are being mapped through the supply chain, and depending on the sector that we're working in, we show transparency for some products all the way back to farm, probably not in terms of cotton and textiles, where obviously it gets very, very complicated at the bottom of the chain. But we're sort of great believers in saying that we will work with our customers to get as far as is possible, and we will leave no stone unturned to try and get as much transparency as we can for individual products. So we work on the basis of either looking at individual SKUs, individual products, or we can look at sort of individual raw materials for different batches. So we can sort of do either. The company started originally doing work principally in the food supply chain, and we have a number of major retailers who work with us, and sort of by, I guess, through the fact that those retailers not only sell food but also sell many other products from clothing through to soaps, detergents, that kind of thing, all the way through to pharmaceuticals, we found that we've been brought into other sectors over a period of time. So we have a technology platform, and I think the other sort of key thing that we bring is that we bring a team of people who work on all of our customers or clients' supply chains to do, I would say, much of the work for our customers. So whilst the technology does most of it in terms of the linking and showing how it all works, in the background behind that, we have people who are working away at the suppliers and through the supply chains to get for more and more transparency. So I think the sort of key thing for this project, and I don't, obviously I don't know amongst the audience today, those of you who have transparency software systems or not, some of you may not, but we very much see ourselves sort of working alongside our customers or participants in these to actually show them that transparency. And what I always say is that often, whilst I could make sort of claims that we can show we can always get all the way back through the supply chains back to the original raw material producer. That obviously isn't always possible, but often it's the information that you can't get that tells you more maybe than when you can get it. i.e. if you find that you hit blocks where you simply aren't able to get further information, that often tells a story in itself. So the sort of the principle. When I first met with Holly and Neil and then Nicola, we were sort of discussing what might or might not be possible in a relatively short period of time, say a pilot project for just 6 months, and so therefore not to make the ambition too great. And I think what we do, sort of behind everything that we do, is create transparency and show your suppliers all the way back through the chain for individual garments. Behind all that, we build, for every supplier, we build a profile of that supplier with as much public information as we can behind that profile. So for instance, we add, as long as the data is available, we add data around the sort of assurance certificates that those suppliers have. We supply sort of data in the background about their location in terms of the potential country risk for all sorts of different metrics. And then, having created the chain, and this is probably outside the scope of this, we give you the capability of actually running programs with those suppliers in terms of communicating to them, getting data to them, and collecting data from them. And then that all gets rolled up into different types of dashboard analytics in terms of risk, etc. But that's probably outside the scope of what I think can be achieved in 6 months, because it's the first part of this, which is the sort of building of the supply chain back to source, that can take some time. So for the purposes of this pilot, what we're talking about of our sort of modules that we have is the mapping capability, the building of the profiles of those suppliers in the background, and adding the assurance certificates that they hold, and then providing some fairly basic analytic dashboards of that data. So the way it works, if you go to the next stage, so the next slide, thanks. So the way it works is every participant in the pilot has their own login and home page with the functionality that is there, and you create this is all dummy data. So you create a catalog, and that catalog can be based on, as I say, individual SKUs, or it can be based on whole categories of product. And all that we require from you is the name of the product that you are looking to trace back through the supply chain. And if you go to the next slide, so you provide the name of the product and your manufacturer, if you're a retailer, but if you're a manufacturer, the one tiered down. So obviously everybody knows who is supplying them with whatever it is they're supplying them with. So in this case here, the participant here would be authentic manufacturer. You tell us who's supplying you in this. So this example here is a t-shirt or pack of 2 t-shirts, and that you tell us who is your manufacturer of that t-shirt. So we will then build a profile of that manufacturer in terms of the publicly available data about what they do and how they operate. And that's the sort of first link in the chain. And for many products that we come across around the world, that is pretty much all that you know is your number one tier 1 supplier. So what we do and what the technology does is requests to your tier 1 supplier, here the Schutzen Group, is for they would receive an email saying that on behalf of Authentic Manufacturer, we're carrying out a supply chain transparency exercise, and all we would require you to do is tell us for this particular product who is your supplier of the raw material, presumably a fabric mill or whatever in this case. And they can either do that using simply the email. They simply sort of they click through the email. It gives them an area where they just provide that data of the name of the company or the name of the mill, the manufacturer, and that is notified back to us, and we go away and build the profile for them if we don't already have it in our network, which we probably wouldn't for the case of cotton. So we build that profile. So the next step, you go to the next step, you would see, so this is sort of the whole way down, you will see that, you know, the tier 1 supplier, the one in green, has provided information of who is providing them with the fabric, and so the whole process continues. So all we're looking for is somebody to give us some information about who it is who's supplying them, and we then go and build the profile in the background, and we then ask them to provide the next tier down. So whilst it's technology working, it's actually us in the background building this and doing the work for you. So over a period of time, and I think 6 months is a good period of time to do this, we would hope to get back for this particular industry, it's probably, you're not going to get back to individual farm for sure, but you're going to get back to country of origin, you would hope. So the exercise is to display transparency. As I say, the next step of this, if you sort of participate, is that you can then run different types of program, request different types of data from anybody within that supply chain to sort of build your analytics, risk analytics, whether it be ESG data or whatever data you want. But just by doing this, we can using the publicly available data, can bring you at least some information on the potential risk or where that is coming. I think in this instance, the most important thing is to be able to, for instance, prove country of origin, or at least prove where it hasn't come from, perhaps. So that is the essence of the exercise, and I think we need to do something in a relatively limited scale here, so it's manageable. with a limited number of products. But I think over a period of 6 months, we could demonstrate something quite interesting to all of you. And that sort of proof of concept might lead to something bigger, whereby we actually roll out something, on an individual basis, a little more substantial. So that's the sort of essence of what I think we can offer to you. I don't know, Neil, do you want to just talk through how this might work?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Paul. So following on from this webinar, our hope is that some of you are interested, and we ask that you would express your interest directly to Nicola and myself, and we will work with Paul very closely on that. We also ask that if you're not the appropriate person in your organization to lead this, that you connect us with that person or with those people. We will be working very quickly to make sure that the appropriate documentation is sent out and signed, and that you have the most available information that you can. And then very quickly after that, we will, as Paul outlined, be asking for 5 product lines, and then Paul and his team will get to work. And I think Paul's outlined that pretty well. We're hoping in terms of getting this project started, should there be interest, that we would get everything kicked off by the end of June. So it's a pretty quick turnaround, and part of that is because the project is coming to a close in the beginning of 2023. But also, we see this as a very clear and pressing issue in the apparel sector at the moment. It's something that's gaining kind of public attention, as well as public sector regulation, and increasingly there's an emphasis on this aspect for brands and retailers. And so we would like to make sure that this opportunity is at least in front of our learning cohorts. And yeah, like I said, we would love to get it done by 2023. Just to say that the cost will be £12,000. That's pounds shared across brands. So that 12,000 number is not per brand, it's shared across brand. And that will include the setup for Authenticate plus Cotton 2040 costs. And then there's an additional £2,500 per brand that goes into the Authenticate platform directly. Paul, do you just want to speak a little bit about the business model in terms of the fees being waived or refunded, and potentially the opportunity to get involved afterwards?
Yeah, sure. So I think so normally, when most of our customers, we operate for a fairly long-term basis. This thing tends to, once brands adopt it, they very rarely leave it, because it really does show that transparency, which as Neil says, is becoming a sort of regulatory requirement around the world anyway. And to be honest, the transparency piece is the start of the journey, really. It's sort of the hard bit. There's a lot of work goes into creating it. And it's really once you have that transparency and you can get visibility of different tiers of your supply base across your whole universe, that a lot of other work can then be done in terms of sort of getting hold of data and creating risk metrics and that kind of thing. So what I would hope is that if we can demonstrate to you that this is a pretty useful tool, the idea would be that if you chose to continue on post the end of this pilot, then any fees that have been paid up front would essentially be refunded against any enterprise fee, because this is basically done. An enterprise fee, I mean basically a sort of membership fee of this on an annual basis. So it's a sort of, it's not quite a free hit, and we're learning along with everybody else for all these different sectors of supply chain. So it's a sort of, if it works, then the proof of concept will come back and essentially be something that's been done for nothing. Obviously, if it doesn't work, we do need, for you, we do need some kind of recompense for the work that has gone in, because there's quite a lot of work has to be done by our teams in the background in terms of making sure that we can get that transparency down. This whilst it will be lovely if in the real world technology did everything. There's usually quite a lot of nudging that is required by our teams to make sure that we can get each layer down.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. The final note I'll make before handing it over to you for questions is this being a pilot, I think if we're gauging the level of interest, we're offering it to you all as a cohort, and we'll be sending it around to your colleagues in the learning cohorts after this call as well, to make sure that the information is there. This will be the recording and some extra information. So if it's only 1 or 2 brands, we'll have to really think about whether that's a green light to go. But we are looking for interest from multiple, and then obviously that has a benefit financially because that cost will be shared across a greater number of brands. We'll hand it over to questions. I ask that if you are asking a question that you put your video on so we can have a look at your lovely faces. Hannah, I saw that you had your hand up and you've been very patient. Would you mind just kicking us off in terms of questions?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'm not quite sure how to frame this question, but it's more just, I think this is, a really exciting prospect. But I'm wondering what information or what assurance, Paul, you can give in relation to people sort of opening their books and opening their contact lists and providing those contact details, just in your experience of people, across the different tiers being willing to do that, or do you come across sort of confidentiality?
You mean in terms of the, sorry, yeah, so in terms of the confidentiality, obviously for every individual participant, the data is completely confidential just to them. So there's no, it's fully, so each individual business that partakes in this has their own platform profile and their own, so nobody can see what everyone else is up to. There may be some kind of sort of generic report that we would create for this group at the end of it in terms of what was the success and what wasn't the success, but everybody operates in their own environment. So between you, there is complete confidentiality. And then in respect of, are you asking, the question is, would your tier 1, say, manufacturer, are they usually willing to provide data about who their suppliers are? Is that the question?
Yeah, exactly. So in your experience, have you come across that reticence?
So this is 9 years ago. 9 years ago, the question was like, well, why are you asking, and who wants to know, and why do you want to know? I would say today the world has changed dramatically, and it is expected and fully understood by pretty much all tiers in the supply chain for pretty much all products that they will provide that data, but largely because there's plenty of brands out there that say simply, if you don't provide it, we simply will have to think about where we go next. So it is, this whole transparency thing, and transparency through supply chains is sort of exponentially increasing each year at the moment in terms of the availability. So if today a supplier of a garment or a supplement of a raw material is unwilling to do so, that usually signals there might be something up. More now, what we don't know is you could tell our people, you could tell us something that isn't true. That is true. So it's not validating that nobody actually goes to that supplier and to check that it's happening. But our experience is that people are pretty unwilling to provide false data usually. So it is getting easier and easier, and it's almost because of these kind of programs, I think, that's the case. It's just an accepted part of 21st century business that you have to be transparent.
Great, thank you. And it's nice to have that assurance that a product like this can actually create additional pressure on people opening up their books. So yeah, I was hoping that's kind of where we would land with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Hannah, and thanks, Paul, for the answer. Are there any other questions from any of the brands or retailers about this initiative that jump out to you? Or is everything very clear? Is there something that you are interested in, or something that you don't see a need for? We're also interested in learning a bit more about that. Is everyone very shy?
I'd be interested to know whether businesses already have this in place, because obviously, there are other things around. It'd be interesting to know whether you are already getting that transparency.
Anyone want to be brave and answer that particular question in terms of their own supply chains?
Hi. Yeah. So at Balkan and Isabella Oliver, we have been doing some of this work internally. So I completely understand the struggle that is going from supplier to supplier, trying to gather that information. Obviously, when we are doing it internally, we don't have that level of external assurance or third-party trust. But it's something that we have been looking into different solutions for, but I am not sure if, as a company, everyone is yet supportive of, and also if, together with everything else that we do, how much relevance is this at the moment for customers? So we know that transparency to a certain level is important to them, but it still seems like, to a degree, it's not a demand being driven for them. It's more of a need for us, a strategic need for us to know where things are coming from in order to manage risks more than anything else. And that doesn't help as a company when it comes to actually budgeting for it, because it can't go into, let's say, a marketing budget. It remains as in our case, a sustainability department budget. So very interesting proposition, something that I'll be discussing internally with the rest of the company, and then we'll get back to you on whether or not we were interested. And thank you, Paul, for the presentation.
Pleasure. Thanks, Anna. Any other reflections from any of the participants? Not seeing anything. So either everybody's having their coffee or it's very clear. So the next steps will be we'll send around both this deck and recording and a full document with the proposal for the pilot to each of you. So to assist in those internal conversations, if of interest, we'll just send it out and hopefully that will be a good basis. In addition, you all have Nicola's email. You should have mine as well. If not, I will be in touch shortly regardless. And that will also be an opportunity for each of you to get in touch about any of the opportunities presented here today. Like I said, we're hoping to have a pretty quick turnaround as in relation to this pilot, this specific pilot. So we do ask that you discuss this relatively quickly internally. Of course, we understand that these things can take time and often require getting your colleagues on board for something that that needs financial input and obviously sign off from other people in the organization. We're really happy to meet on a one-to-one basis to address any concerns and to discuss the value proposition in greater detail. And that offer extends to anything that we've discussed today as well. Otherwise, I'm very happy to finish 3 minutes early and give you all the time back. Just to say thank you very much to Nicola and Paul for presenting today and for each of you for your time. And we look forward to connecting with you throughout the next year as part of this initiative, as part of the Cotton 2040 initiative, and we'll be in touch very soon. So thank you very much again, and have a good rest of your day, wherever you are.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Nicola. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye, everyone.